with someone that you like, so you guys can talk about how much you don't like it together. Bringing people together, one don't like me at a time. No, it's been a rough day for a couple days for people who listen to the show regularly, because the last time I saw as much misinformation being spread on every platform imaginable, people were saying we were going to need prescriptions for COVID vaccines, and that turned out to not be a thing. It almost ended up being a thing because they made such a thing out of it, but only after they made a big thing out of it. Anyways, we were just saying, I'm sick of these headlines of, brainworm Kennedy is terrorizing people, and I want to see more headlines that are like, we are beating this guy. He's losing. He's losing the battles. If you're a long-time listener, before I get into the BA32 stuff, let's all keep in mind that he had to reverse the last 2 ACIP meetings. Reversed. Nothing really bad happened at any of them, but they are reversed via court order. So, Evil Kenny Malone, he's out. These people are out. So, the attack on vaccines, while not over, it has been successfully mitigated, and I feel like that makes a much better headline, but maybe it doesn't. What do I know about headlines, right, guys? Maybe I got it all wrong. But
how about illegitimate ACIP shut down?
Illegitimate ACIP shut down. Just like Trump's illegitimate ballroom plans need to get shut down. That's next on the list, which I don't know if you guys saw on the news today. They announced that it's a bunker. He just said it. He just said it out loud. I don't even know what to do with this guy at this point. He's just like, it's basically going to be like a bunker. The thing on top is more of a shed. He called it a shed. He really went from a ballroom to a shed. A $200 million shed and a $200 million bunker over it. That's or did I say million or billion? I'm not even sure anymore. Money numbers all sound fake. But, yeah. And apparently Iran released another video for the illegitimate war, and we're seeing more. And I just, I think the thing, and this is what I hate about war in general, is everyone's just lying. They're saying they're hitting more, we're saying we're hitting more, they're doing this, they're doing that. Unless he nuked them in the last 2 hours and we didn't catch it in the news during pre-call, it just seems like you don't really know what is going on in any situation. But we're learning that it very much we are getting hit at different locations from Iran releasing videos, AI videos of Legos telling the story. I don't know if you guys seen those yet, but they had one where his diaper was on fire, and I think they sent him a coffin in the new one. Sent Trump a coffin.
Wow.
Yeah, an empty coffin. These guys are not. This is not a joke war. This is a real war that dummy started, and he's getting real people killed. It's really scary.
They know it gets to him, I guess, because that's the same sort of stuff that he would put out.
Right. Like the shitting on all the protesters bullshit that he did.
Right. Oh yeah, right. I forgot about that one.
Oh, how could you forget? Oh, well, I know how you could forget, because we had Trump. We had RFK beating up a digital Twinkie or whatever that was. What was that? Was he wrestling in that video, or the real Kid Rock video? Which,
yeah.
That.
But I forgot about that when Trump, the cartoon, or was it a cartoon or was it an AI thing of him flying over the No Kings protest and all the feces coming out of the plane onto the protesters.
Yeah, there was a lot. I want to say something real fast about the No Kings protest. They're kind of building into something that might actually turn out to be meaningful. It's a lot of people. And people are like, why are only the white people here? It's because it's not safe for everyone else to be out. They should be at home. We were protesting for them. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a good...
Well, the online left is doing a great job of mocking everybody and saying, oh, it's worthless, which, is not helpful. We've got people who have never done any political activity in their lives showing up for this. So give them a look at grace.
Well, if they just turn it into... See, the same leftists who are complaining about it should be showing up at these events, to register voters or give people the right information or tell people what they need to know.
Or recruit them for whatever, communist takeover you're planning, whatever.
Right. And most of them hate masking, so they don't care about large groups of people. So, it's why... You know what I mean? If you don't care so much about not protecting people, then go out and make something worthy of it. But instead, they just want to complain and risk immunocompromised people at the same time. The big one, they're going off of AOC voting for Israel stuff and how they're Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks, who, by the way, is a TERF and anti-homeless. Like, she moved into Venice, where like my city where I got started, and you know, homeless people on the beach is a part of Venice Beach. It's the only place for some of these people to go. And to then try to like push those people out of the only place they have left to go, when you can push them into the ocean, is, in my opinion, eugenics. So this is a woman who supports eugenics of homeless people and is like pushing that's like rich white person, but she's very adamantly pro-Israel or anti-Israel and says a lot of things people want to say and gets into spaces where she can say those things. But when she yells at AOC, she's not yelling from the left. Like, that's the thing that I think that people don't realize. They're not on the left in that regard. Like, AOC is more to the left, and like what someone has to do in politics to like survive is their business. Like, you know what I mean? She's been, I think personally, I mean, she treated me, just for the record, I'm not an AOC simp, because I made AOC simp videos a long time ago to get people to get in support of her for there, and she treated me fucking awful. So like, I'm not a big fan either. She very personally treated me terrible. I've talked about it before on the show, but whatever, you know, it doesn't change the fact that what she has to do to survive in Washington is more important than whatever these idiots think. Because it's like, when we were trying to elect her, and think about all the good she's done being in her position of power, that it's kind of more important than whatever she did to me personally or whatever these people are complaining about, because we don't have a voice like that. And I think what people don't realize, and this is something you know, Terry, you've been around a long time, these people don't want us to have that voice, because when they have that voice, then they get to be the voice. Like, as soon as we got, like, when I was making the push for AOC, it was because I was in the grassroots and I did not have, like, you can't be famous and not have like some amount of money, because you end up with just too much negativity that you literally can't survive. And so like, when you're in the grassroots, yeah, it's the thing, because if I have that negativity and like a healthy bank account, then bring it on, I don't care. But the negativity doesn't feed my bank account, it actually only inhibits my growth to fill my bank account. So it's like which apparently everyone has to do, I keep getting told. So people don't realize that it's they don't realize how that works. Sorry, it's very I'm trying to be funny about it. It's like super traumatic. And so but what she's doing and the good she can do, and like all these people, is more important. But if they weren't there, if she wasn't there, then these people on the left would have even larger voices. And when we lifted her up, and I made such a big deal out of it, I lost my voice and gave it to her. Like, I lost my voice in a big way, because suddenly you have this person who I did not, communicate with, who was now viewed as in a higher leadership position. And that was necessary and important. And I think that these people don't really understand that, because all they see is that she's getting attention that they want. And if she wasn't there, if the progressive wasn't speaking in the White House, they'd be talking to progressives on social media again. And I think that's what it's all about.
These are all individuals too. Like, no single politician is going to do exactly what you want them to do all the time, in every situation.
No one is ever, anyone. And you shouldn't expect someone to. That sounds like not like we talked about this before. You should disagree with something that I say on the show. Like, it's normal to disagree with me.
I disagree. That joke again.
But I do want to get to BA32. The new variant, the hot new variant on the scene, so hot right now, is neither new nor hot, but we'll get into that in a second. Also, a bunch of long COVID studies came out. Let's see if I can get these names right, because we had some successes and we had some failures. The 2 recovery studies, one with Paxlovid and one with, I did not write, ivabradine? Am I saying that correctly? For POTS. Paxlovid for persistent virus, neither worked. Paxlovid, just so you know, does not. People say, well, we need proof of concept. If Paxlovid had some results, maybe it would show that the persistent virus is driving. We already did proof of concept. Like, in 2023, we already had proof of concept that persistence was driving long COVID. We already went to the government with it. We already got access to Novavax and all COVID vaccines for 2 months on that basis. So people saying we need proof of that, I'm like, why don't you know we have proof of that already? Why don't people talk about that we have proof? We've already gotten regulatory approval for usage on the basis that, the whole thing is so bonkers to me that people are like, you should all mask and hate everyone who doesn't follow me exactly, and they get so intense, but they themselves are not doing the best precautions or like pushing the best information. Like, it's so weird how critical they can be of other people, then while at the same time not doing it themselves. I guess that's just people for you. But the ivermectin, which I hope I'm saying right, it's they're saying there's a lot of talk about how they might not have gotten the right subset of POTS patients for it. Because apparently there's a ton of different types of POTS. 3 main ones, and then a bunch can be triggered by disease specific, so you end up with like tons and tons of different types of POTS, it sounds like. So one of the things is like, I'm going to be honest with everybody, POTS is like my big gap in long COVID. Like, I understand, like, we're going to talk about why fluoxamine is helping and how that's similar to other central nervous systems, get really complicated stuff. But POTS is very complicated and confusing. And, you know, I think that the one thing that I've really taken away from the data we've gotten recently is that the majority of POTS is seen as some sort of like blood pressure issue, when it should probably be treated as a central nervous system issue. So how that works, I hope we get closer, because a lot of people are suffering and struggling with this. And it's very frustrating, actually, because, you know, people are always saying the pandemic's over, and then all this sort of stuff. It's not over. The Who, we made a video, Jesse here made the soundtrack, it's a great video, on why, when the Who did cancel the emergency declaration, they're explaining that COVID is not over, the pandemic is still continuing. This is just the emergency declaration, which they really only cut for the coronation. Like, really, like, if you were there when it was happening, it was... the coronation was going to happen, and they didn't want the coronation under Prince Charles. They didn't want it with COVID precautions, so they had the emergency thing lifted so they could do the coronation, and then pretty much all downhill from there. What's that?
Sorry, it also aligned within 6 days of the public health emergency in the U.S. ending, too.
Yeah,
with the Biden signed off on.
Right.
6 days after that message came out.
It's just it's all kind of like, they wanted a good pageant, and so they were like, you don't need your brains, stop it, pageant, think pageant. People, the Who director came out recently talking about long COVID, and he was like, I can't do an impersonation right now because I'll probably get in trouble, but he's just talking about how we made that video for so long. I have his like accent stuck in my head, but I'm pretty sure I'll get canceled if I try it. The point is,
that's a hard imitation, though. That's a really hard imitation.
I don't think I'm allowed to do it. I just don't think I'm supposed to do it at all. The point is that is he came out and said, many people are still living with long COVID, and I hate that. I hate that so much, because I'm hearing stories of people who are getting long COVID like 6 months ago. They're just now realizing they have long COVID. The people are getting it from infections right now, even though COVID is technically at some of the lowest levels it's been. That's irrelevant to the idea that we are at a constant state that is already so high that there is no higher risk to go. So if COVID wastewater goes higher than it is now, it is technically riskier, but the risk is already at maximum when it's really, really low. You're already at maximum risk potential. That's one of the things that gets me annoyed about people who are always like, this variant, that variant, these things, all this sort of. No, it's a constant rate that we have to learn to live with and work around and figure out how to teach the public to get rid of. Like, if you want, you can't be like, because I think the BA.3.2, I mean, this shit is everywhere, and I think the biggest problem with this, it makes it sound like COVID went away. Like, it makes it sound like, oh, COVID's back, guys. Didn't you hear? COVID's back because it was gone for so long. Remember how COVID was gone? Well, it's back now.
New variant.
That's what the public is hearing. Oh, see, and then you have to go, COVID never went away, which is true, and you're 100% right. But we've allowed this to become propaganda that is reaffirming people's feelings that they were right to not take precautions this whole time. So they are seeing COVID in waves, like, this is going to be a new wave, and we have to do the thing. And this is really problematic because BA.3.2 has not been able to create consistent waves like other JN1 variants have. So let's explain how this works. BA.3.2 is not new. Actually, I should put it. BA.3.2 is so new that it was in our presentation to the VRBPAC last year. That's how that's how new it was. It was in our presentation. It was on the list of variants for last year when we picked JN1 again for Novavax and LP81. Thing. What I did on that same page on the presentation, I made a point about how if we choose LP81, by the time LP81 vaccines are ready to go, we're going to be dealing with not LP81 anymore. It'll be a virus that's immune-evasive to those antibodies specifically. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what occurred. So that was an interesting thing to look back on. We make all these pushes. The big one was getting vaccines out earlier. which is this also kind of slows that down if we're not careful. But the point is that here's the difference between BA32 and JN1 subvariants, right? So you got NB1A1, LP81, XFG. Those are all JN1 subvariants. The thing about JN1 subvariants that make them unique comparative to most variants we see is they prioritize immune evasion in all cases. So most of their variants are immune evasive to each other. Okay, so they can have reinfection risk. So if you, even though they're antigenically similar, they have immune evasion to one another. This is really important to understand. This is why when we look at XFG in these huge waves, the way we track it, this is why I hate giving these things these silly little names all the time, because it makes it even harder to go and research this stuff for yourself and more dependent upon these people's interpretations, which are wrong in the first place. But the deal is that XFG is able to create these long sustained waves because it has a ton of subvariants that are all circulating in super small amounts, so they don't get qualified as their own variant until they reach, which right now I think XFG.1 is the new dominant variant in wastewater. So that we do finally have a new dominant XFG of all the subvariants.
Yeah.
So that's really important to keep in mind that transition is happening right now. So XFG1 might be the right target, because that could be the next wave, and everything's going to come from that. Now, BA32 is antigenically distinct. So remember, Omicron is BA, right? BA1, BA2, BA3, BA4, and 5. And we had 3 kind of die out. We had vaccines for 1, 4, and 5. And this is why they think, it's one of the theories, that why most variants around the world are BA2. And it would make sense that BA3 is making that too, because we never vaccinated for BA2, and we never vaccinated for BA3. So now we've vaccinated for BA2 very heavily. We've done a bunch of vaccines, because was XBB 1.5 BA2? I feel like it was.
I think so. I think that was a...
Well, the variants have been BA2 for a really long time. Ever since we did the bivalent, we've had BA2 variants. So when we talk about BA32 and we say, well, BA32 has immune evasion to antibodies created by BA2 infections. Okay, that makes sense to me, because BA32 is antigenically distinct. But that is not the same as it creating multiple subvariants that prioritize immune evasion, because there is a lower reinfection risk. So like right now, the variants that are coming off of BA32 are actually called RE, and they've been making some noise because they are a little immune evasive, so they were infecting people. But they're immune evasive to, again, the XFG and the other BA2, JN1 sort of dominant variants worldwide. And worldwide, I believe, I still use Mike Honey for this, because he's like the only one in that group who does like really good work. He does do good work. I don't think charts are kind of hard to read, but the information is there, so it's useful. But his most recent chart, I think I looked at it said that NB181 was rising, which is another JN1 subvariant, which was my secondary target for last year. Last year I was like, NB181 could be the next variant, but it's like too soon to say. XFG came out of nowhere. We did not see it coming. It was on the charts, but it hadn't like achieved the dominance it did. It did it really fast. And that's the same thing that we would expect from BA32. It would have already done it if it could. But because it's not creating these chains of immune-evasive variants, subvariants, that have reinfection risk, it can't get a foothold to create a huge wastewater dashboard, like several lines, like 30-40% of the overall wastewater is going to be XFG, because it's a ton of XFG variants that all have immune evasion to each other, because they prioritize immune evasion. So like how it's being reported is very misleading. And so like my big concern is that the variant never doing anything, which I don't think it will. It's going to do like a little bit of noise, it's going to be like 10-11% for like a couple weeks, and unless it like creeps over like 15-16 pretty fast, it's probably not going to, because it hasn't been able to do that.
It just appeared in our wastewater this week at 11%.
Yeah.
BA3.
I was like, wow, they're going to make me eat my hat that fast, huh? It was like we went from it not being in there at all to it just showing up finally. Because we've been talking about this variant since last year, and BA3s have just never been able to do anything. we had a name for them. We used to think originally that it was a recombinant, but it's not a recombinant. The BA3 is its own distinct lineage. And there used to be a goofy name for BA3 way before these guys were naming variants. I can't remember what it was. This was a really long time ago. We're talking like 2022, right? When Omicron? Because Omicron emerged in 2021. And then we had it full tilt by 2022. And then it was like causing that huge winter wave when we took our masks off in 2022, 2030, right? Or was that 2021? Oh man, I gotta look at this charts again. It's like I'm doing arithmetic live. Point is it's kind of wild how little time pre-Omicron was. Now that we've had Omicron for so long, like it's really interesting when you look at it, how little of time that period actually was. And I think that's the period where people go, you know, during COVID, and because it was like, you know, doing the stuff. But now it's like, I wish more people had seen the pictures of what it did to like people's lungs, because if you like explain, this is what it did to lungs, now it's doing it to your veins
and your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just the cytokines alone, like we're learning so much about cytokines and how bad they are for us and how much they disrupt our brain, that these infections that people are having all the time, like I can't believe that anyone is like saying it's normal to have an infection, because you're like, we got a study on, I'm going to butcher it, fluvoxamine, right? Fluvoxamine, that actually had some successful treatments on fatigue. And this has a complex, so this specific, it's an SSRI, which we're still learning a lot about this because we're trying our best. But the theory is that they have is that it affects something called sigma-1. And sigma-1 is like a neurotransmitter that, let's see, what do we say? It moves serotonin around. It doesn't move serotonin around, but it modulates the process by which serotonin moves around. So people who are having low serotonin could be having this problem with the sigma-1 regulation, and this fluvoxamine gives credit to that theory because there was some sustained improvements from people regarding fatigue specifically. And it was I didn't read the whole full study. We got a lot of it from Biff. Biff, you want to jump in and correct anything I said? You're like, no, I'll let you butcher the names on your own. Fine.
No, that sounds right so far, and all the pronunciation was correct. So.
Oh, that's fantastic, because I definitely did not spell this word right when I wrote it down. I'm going totally on muscle memory here, folks. But the sigma-1's really interesting because it comes back to that's another thing that ginseng helps with. Ginseng and CBD help with sigma-1. So people who are having fatigue, we talk about if this is the problem, because it's okay. So when you're dealing with the central nervous system, one thing we really learned from it's called the AMPA process, and a couple of months ago we got a study showing that they could detect buildups of AMPA inside of people's brains, and that was causing inflammation. There's a disease you get from just the buildup of AMPA alone. I think it's called or glutamate. It's elastotoxicity, something like that. Anyways, or excitotoxicity. Point is that the AMPA needs to have glutamate brought to it that transforms it into an ion channel that allows calcium, potassium, and one other nutrient that you need in your brain to literally think, to allow your brain to function. Because I don't know if you've ever seen a brain function, but the brain literally fires an electrical signal between itself, and that signal is with calcium. So it's made out of calcium. So you have to have enough calcium to make your brain work, and potassium, calcium, and one other thing. And so so when the glutamate hits the AMPA, it transforms it into an ion channel that allows these nutrients. Basically creates like the doorway, the magical doorway that Doctor Who walks through. I guess it'd be the other guy with the portal gun. A little more like that. It creates a portal gun, you walk through the portal. That's kind of the vibe. So it seems like the fluvoxamine has a similar sort of thing where the sigma-1 is being affected by cytokines, because sigma-1 is super vulnerable to cytokines, right? So it's just like the AMPA, because the cytokines disrupt that process, and it's a process called GABA, G-A-B-A, that in the AMPA process that like recycles and rebuilds that process. So that's why things like nicotine work, because they activate the GABA routines and help create, because these things are all feedback loops, and this is something that our old co-host used to talk a lot about, and he really turned me on to that. I really realized it's like so important. Shout out to Freeze. That has to do with these feedback loops in the central nervous system, that they are supposed to work automatically. And so when they stop working automatically, we have to figure out where the stop might have happened and how to maybe restart that process. And in a perfect world, it works automatically. And this is where modern medicine, especially Western medicine, and like how things work are butting heads. Because it seems like to me, and this is just my feeling, that especially when you talk about fluvoxamine, which is an SSRI, which are highly addictive, very hard to break off of. They are looking for an addictive tool, like a tool that will make you need it all the time. They're not
forever.
Forever. They're not interested in you restarting the process and then it going back to natural automatic order. They're trying to figure out how to create something that you need every day for the rest of your life, because that's what they're trying to do. And so this is where I feel
Just like they're down with causing diabetes, because you'll be addicted to some diabetes meds for the rest of your life. Not addicted, but you'll need the diabetes meds for the rest of your life.
I'm addicted to life. In this case, diabetes, you want to keep living, and that's the whole thing. So you talk about titanium dioxide or these other things that are known causative to diabetes, and people are like, whatever. And you're like, no, this is like a problem. The pre-diabetes and diabetes numbers in children right now are outrageous. It's like 1 in 3 or something sick. It's like the numbers of kids with diabetes is just otherworldly. And we've talked a lot about how the diabetes drug companies are very methodical about creating diabetes. Like they like talk about it. They're like open about it. They write about it. It is not. They talk about upping their volume of sales and doubling it in a set amount of time. And you're like, how do you plan on increasing your revenue by 100% in 10 years? What do you think is happening? What do they know that we don't know? COVID causes diabetes, by the way, just in case you didn't know.
And if there's more long COVID symptoms that you can treat with pharmaceuticals but not cure, that's their wet dream, man. They'll love it.
Well, you go back to the Sigma-1 and you got this, you see constant serotonin. So it's part of the process of getting serotonin where it needs to go. So if you are, if it's not working right, serotonin isn't where you need it, and you have too much serotonin where you don't want it. So it's bad news. But it brings us back down to a lot of this comes back around to managing mitochondrial function. And the reason serotonin, this whole process with the Sigma-1 goes on to like inhibit or process your entire mitochondrial system, your central nervous system. So you're back to, what do we call them, COQ10s and those types of things. I found that, I looked it up very quickly, but like things like ginseng, which we've always been suggesting, but you need the genocides, not the, apparently we learned that Cold FX has no genocide in it. That's why it has lower side effects. They've like split the drug in half and taken half they want, left the half out.
Don. I gotta pause you. Ginsenosides.
Thank you.
That's not genocide. That's
we definitely don't need any more genocide.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. So glad you finally found a reason to talk. Hello, Donna. I'm wrong. Thank you. I'm just not going to say the word again. But the
ginseng.
Yes.
I literally thought you meant like it's not from Israel, and there's not like I really thought you meant genocide.
No, nope, I did not. I did not mean. I'm glad we've had this discussion, group. No, no, I did not. No, I was just saying that I learned recently from one of our staff members. They were looking it up, how they've made it so it has less of that in it. So specifically, if you wanted to have the Sigma-1 interaction, you needed it to have it with that part of it, which I'm not going to say again because I didn't write it down on my list. So this is sort of like when you're thinking about trying to recover from whatever you're dealing with, you got to remember, like, what you see other people do is not going to necessarily work for you because these things are all so different. But it's worth trying as long as you don't have, like, negative reactions, and you do want to stay away from, in my opinion, things that have long-term addiction risk. I think that just in general, you never know when something's going to work too well. and maybe like when I have my life back, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's tough to say what's actually going on there. But ultimately, you're trying to restart these feedback loops that should work, naturally. So you want to basically do whatever you can do to improve your baseline. So I think that while we talk about drugs like this or the nicotine patches or whatever might work because it's different parts of the systems have been disrupted, the overall goal is better mitochondrial function. So mitochondrial function is really going to start with your diet. And I hate saying this because everyone gets all like, oh, you right-wing, you're a nutbag. No, I swear. But sunlight, getting sun, really important. It's not a cure, but it's an important part of the process. And then magnesium, if you, it's like from there, because you need magnesium to process vitamin D, and that's only if you're deficient. So that's the other thing about supplements. I think that's the thing that we kind of miss here. It's like people who have this serotonin issue, that we see a lot of people with long COVID with serotonin deficiencies, they could take like 5-HTP or like other things to try and do precursor serotonin. You could try those things. What was I saying? But basically, things are really for deficiencies. So you kind of like, I feel like most importantly, you want to figure out what you might be deficient in, nutrient-wise, like what's missing from your diet, and then try to figure out what you've become intolerant to. Right? Someone messaged me, who was a pretty solid COVID advocate, who was surprised that they are gaining intolerance to medications. And
interesting.
Like, yeah. They had a really bad reaction. I don't want to get too much into what they said to me. I kind of tried to have the same sort of but I could say that they were surprised that they were having like toxic reactions to things that they hadn't had toxic reactions to, and I'm just like that totally resonates with me though, because it's sort of like that's how it was when I like took me forever to figure out that I was intolerant to like a bunch of really healthy green vegetables. Like the things you tell people you like force your kids to eat make me horribly sick. Which is something to think about also with like kids, because I wonder how many people, because this happened since I was a kid, how many kids are forced to eat things that like they were told are good for them, but they actually are intolerant to. Like I wonder how many people are suffering on that. But with long COVID, people who didn't have intolerances gain them. So I think we also talk about GLP-1 inhibitors. That, like, they work in a couple of different ways for some people, but part of that is going to be cutting out the foods you're intolerant to because you just stop eating. And that will reduce inflammation and help with your recovery to figure out what is causing the problem. Could be just a single ingredient in something you eat a lot. Like, it could just be the thing itself is fine, but that version of it has an ingredient in it you can't eat. It's pretty wild, actually.
If you are taking an SSRI, probably you don't want to mess around with 5-HTP because that can push you into serotonin syndrome.
That is correct. Well, if you're taking SSRIs, you have a whole bunch of things you can't take and do at that point, don't you? There's like a whole bunch of overlapping.
Not as many as some of the earlier antidepressants, but
it was interesting reading about how like the suicidal thoughts that people talk about with SSRIs, and you're like, because they're like flooding you with good feeling but doing nothing about the bad feeling, so you could still have the bad feeling but feel really good about it, which I would see as become suicidal like super fast.
Well, one theory that I read about was that you start feeling more energetic and stuff first, and so you finally have enough energy to do yourself in.
Oof!
I don't know.
Ouch!
Wow.
Yeah.
I think there's something worth saying because it does block the feeling. So we were reading a study on it stopping. So this whole sigma-1 thing is part of the process when you get extreme inflammation and you feel like you're gonna die, and then eventually your body's like, yeah, you're fucking dying, and you go into like sepsis or whatever. It happens at this spot in your central nervous system, and they're basically able to prove with mice that if you administer fluvoxamine during these high inflammatory periods, they had a lower chance of sepsis and a higher chance of recovery. So that was very interesting, and I can't help but feel, and so I talk about pre-call. It's a very sensitive subject. But there is, so I'm on long COVID stuff on Twitter and on Reddit and just a bunch of random places that maybe I can or can't interact with, but I read all of it. And I'm seeing so many people who are literally suicidal right now in the long COVID. I can't live like this, and I think they have every right to feel that way. I don't think there's anything like out of place for them to feel that way. But I feel like there's this thing people talk about that just makes them feel that way, where they just feel like they're fucking dying, like their brain's on fire, and it's all this sort of stuff. And it reminds me of people who, the day after they did MDMA.
Oh yeah, very similar actually. Sure.
So so you see this feeling that people are having where they're just like, they feel like their brain's on fire, and it just reminds me of people not having serotonin in the right place.
Yeah.
And then we see the serotonin deficiencies in people, so it makes sense that if someone is having that deficiency, that this might actually help them. And we've seen it help a couple of people, but again, you're back to very specific sort of, you know, I wonder if we can measure the sigma 1 in some way or something like that. Anyways, there's a lot there. I think it's not all bad news, but I do have some bad news coming up next. Apparently COVID's killing T cells via upregulation of a specific protein, and it kills them without infecting them. And for all the people who are like, COVID kills T cells, I that's a whole new level of I don't believe you horror for you to share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just so you know, you're hot, Terry. So the killing T cells, just I don't know, finding a new way. So on one hand, they're talking about how infections, like there's all this propaganda that infections are less severe and blah blah blah. And I feel like there is an argument to make that infections are actually less severe, in the sense of that means fucking nothing because your T cells are still getting wiped out and you just die of something else. So I feel like it's like, yeah, maybe it is less severe, but what does that even mean? Like, you know, like it's such a weird thing to like say it makes COVID safe now. You know, it's also the kind of like back to the BA.3.2 thing. I feel like it'd be a lot more meaningful. It'd be like, oh, there's a new variant of immune evasion if we were meaningfully blocking infection in any way. But,
yeah. Oh, a little. I did a little fact check on that BA.2, and yeah, XBB.1.5 is a descendant of two BA.2s.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, and that's why we're getting all the BA.2 is because we vaccinated for the other ones, and so it's harder for those ones to get a foothold. And then this one is prioritizing immune evasion, and that's why we have so many BA.2 variants. And the JN1 specifically do that. But jumping from horrible news to good news, the killing the T cells thing is very really fascinating. I feel like the jury's still out on how serious it is, but we do know that Biff did check this. We said metformin did upregulate that protein, right? Is that what we were like? I believe I'm saying.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's tough to say if metformin is actually making it worse or not, but it is definitely upregulating the thing that has been identified as part of the problem. So I don't know. Jury's still out. I'm not a fan of the metformin use. We just had metformin fail for long COVID, right? That was one of the failures too, wasn't it? I feel like I read a study on metformin not helping with long COVID recently too.
Right. They also studied metformin in the study for fatigue and long COVID. We were talking about the SSRI, and metformin showed no change in that study.
The fluvoxamine, that was the one.
Right.
Right. Okay. So I'm actually glad some of these studies, like we got to stop studying Paxlovid for long COVID. It's done. It's done. It shouldn't even be used for COVID. But it's done. I'm so sick of these. Like 3 years of people talking about Paxlovid and how it's going to cure their long COVID, and your guys are like, you have much better chance of getting your long COVID cleared by Novavax. And then people are like, well, it helped me with my infection, and I'm like, yeah. And did you get any Novavax in that time? Yeah, I got 3 Novavax in that time. And you're like, so it's weird when people say they're like, oh, but it helped me so much between my infections, and you're like, yeah, because you got a bunch of Novavax, and that's what Novavax does. And they're like, no, it was the Paxlovid because it made my infection better than the last one. It doesn't click, but you got Novavax, and the whole point of Novavax is it makes your infection, if you do get infected, it makes it shorter, because we talk about sterilizing a lot. I'm really pissed off about this still. But Novavax is a sterilizing vaccine, just not in the context of the fake definition that all these people are using on Twitter. But sterilizing just means that it starts fighting the infection at the site of infection. So it starts in the upper respiratory tract right away. And that can block infection entirely if you have a low dose exposure. Or if you do go on to get an infection, your body's already fighting it at the source. So So you're going to have a shorter days of infection. That's what sterilizing means with COVID. That's the thing I think people have a really hard time. We still need intranasals. We use nasal sprays to pick up the slack and that sort of thing, because the nasal sprays will lower your viral exposure should you be exposed. If within like 3 hours of infection in most cases, any type of external irrigation will help reduce viral load. And then you're just trying to like meet in the middle, and you want the viral load as low as possible. Should you be exposed, you want the viral load to be as low as possible. You want to be vaccinated with the best upper respiratory tract vaccine, and you want to be able to treat it within 2 to 3 hours of exposure with some type of nasal irrigation. And then from there, you can use nasal sprays to help on the other side, because some of them do have immune boosting effects, like the nitric oxide ones that I'm always talking about. And the people who say they don't work are liars. The people who say there is no proof of them working, they're liars. Are the studies great? No. Do they need work? Yes. But these people don't understand mechanisms. There's a mechanism here for them to work. So people saying they don't work and there's no proof of them working are people who do not understand mechanisms, and those are people you should not listen to for safety data. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You don't need to be freaked out and like scared about COVID all the time. It's like we should be normalizing taking protections, and like one-way masking does work when you're taking all these other steps. People say it doesn't. Absolutely does. Is it an excuse for people not to wear masks? Absolutely not. But to say that your mask doesn't work if someone else doesn't wear one is a problem in all the other processes. It's like if it's an N95 and it's taking out 95% of it, you just got to pick up that 5% slack. That's what the vaccines and all the other things do. So this idea, like, people need to see you out with the mask using these precautions. They need to see it. They need to physically see it happening and see that you have a better life for doing it. That's, I think, the thing that's missing on trying to, like, engage with people. Everybody's kind of missing out that you have to be, like, appealing. I gotta blow my nose really fast.
Right. Normalize wearing the mask, and of course, more mitigations the better. But if all those mitigations aren't happening, any mitigation is better than no mitigation.
Yeah, and you can always, like, if you don't want to go to the meeting because they don't have air filters, then bring an air filter. Like, don't you're making the room cleaner for everyone. You don't, like, by standing outside the room and protesting, you don't, like, make your stuff seem more appealing. Not in those environments. And yeah, the people who are being toxic about masks, because the people who want protections, the people who are saying we should be COVID safe, are objectively correct. Like, there's no argument there. But when you're actually trying to appeal to people and get people to take on this stuff and see it as a good thing, that is subjective. So it's tricky. It's tricky, and I think to say it isn't tricky is lying to people. And people oversimplify it by having this, like, all or nothing attitude. And that's what ticks me off about it. It's like most of the people who have this all or nothing attitude are also still not pushing the full protection spectrum. And I feel like if we were pushing that full protection spectrum, there's also less need to be hostile to these people, because you're protecting yourself. Like, I think people think of like we have to achieve herd immunity. And I think they don't understand what herd immunity is. Herd immunity is so that when you have an immunocompromised person who cannot get a vaccine to work on them, you get everyone else vaccinated, and then that person is protected because the disease cannot spread to them easily. So it can still spread to them, but just not easily. If you're wearing a mask, that does the same thing. Like, it achieves the same thing. You have like personal herd immunity because you're wearing a mask and taking these precautions. So the way they have everyone all worked up that you, like, can't go anywhere and you can't live your life and you can't, like, see people or family or do things you have to because they're not COVID safe is totally ridiculous. I think it's really harmful, actually. Because you're not only making people who do take precautions seem like lunatics, you're also, pushing people into isolation, and it's just not how you grow a movement. It's how you shrink a movement. You will only lose people over time. And those people will lose their support. Because I think one thing we're going to talk about disabled people, disability communities, is that they survive on the goodwill of others a good portion of the time. And if that goodwill goes away, so does their survival. So this idea that you can take a disabled community and push them into these isolating roles, I just feel like it just becomes eugenics with extra steps. It's like eugenics you can feel good about. It's gross.
The golden age of America begins right now.
What are you trying to say?
It's always this nice segue.
That was good. It was good. We did have a little bit of validation here of something we've been saying as a group about treating persistence and long COVID. And because I guess if someone has an acute infection for 3 months, do we call that long COVID? I think under some rules we do. So, like, I don't think that qualifies as long COVID, but some people qualify that as long COVID. It's definitely long COVID.
Right. I mean, the thing is that you're dealing with persistent virus, right? And that's the constant in either case.
I wish it was said as simply as you just put it all the time. Because yes, yes, that is exactly right. It's persistent virus in both cases, and this idea that they like, I can't believe that there is such a like. When I started out doing COVID stuff, I knew some things, but not nearly what I know now. And knowing what I know now, it is an absolute affront to all information available about viruses to think that COVID would not be persistent in some way.
Exactly, most of them are.
Completely unrealistic, denialistic. Well, we don't know that. Yes, we do. Sit down. Yes, we do. And the way I cannot believe that they fought so hard for so long to like try to convince people that the virus couldn't be persistent. I mean, I can only think they were doing it because they had a long plan to profit from the disease and damage caused by it. Like, I feel like they're like, we'll create a new market for treatments and disease. But just convincing people it doesn't do this thing for long enough for them to get it. I mean, that is what is happening. Ugh. That's the other thing that gets me about. We'll go back to this validation we had in a second, but that's the whole thing with like the long COVID and studying it and all this sort of stuff, and like how people are like, well, we don't know if it's persistence, and you're like, well, why don't you start there? And then they keep doing these bad persistence tests, like testing Paxlovid, and people come back being like, well, I want to say, when I say these things, like, if you're the person who said that to me, trust me, I mean what I'm saying, and I understand why you said that. Okay, I understand that you're wrong too, but that's okay. I think I said he was wrong at the time. So, but we don't need proof of concept. We have proof of concept already. We've proven concept tons of times. There is just not a really good study pushing it, and even if there was a good study pushing it, that study would still be like, further analysis is required, because that's what studies do. And so you're just like, it's so frustrating that so many people are suffering and struggling so hard, and people have died, and it's all because, and people want to draw a question into like the most valuable pathway for treatment. And like, also, I don't think anyone in the long COVID community, I mean, not to say we're the only ones who get it right, but I don't feel that like the other groups really cover how degenerative long COVID is and how dangerous that makes it. Like, I feel like the most, like, because when you think about ME/CFS, it is degenerative. It's kind of like the immune escape versus the immune evasion sort of thing, like the different types of immune evasion. It's like ME/CFS does cause, you know, people to have downward spirals, but over like 30 years, 40 years. Like, COVID does it in like 6 months. And you see people have these horrible downward spirals. It's way more degenerative, and we just don't talk about it properly. I don't understand how people can think there's all this need to handle something when there's not a literal pressing timeline that we could point to say this is why there's a literal pressing need, because it's degenerative, because this mechanism happens, and that means it could be happening here, and that means the people who don't have symptoms might have it, and they could be having degenerative experience without symptoms, or they're unaware of, on the same scale as these people who are here protesting trying to explain to you they need treatment. Like, that chain happens so quickly when you explain it's degenerative and why it's degenerative and how it's the primary mechanism of the virus and how that goes on. And then, you know, you might not have symptoms. Like, suddenly, I don't know, am I alone in thinking that creates like a bigger need to the general population that we need to do something about this? Or, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why it's such a hard concept for people to get. I know you guys get it, but I mean, like, I fought with so many people over this, and you're like, but it's literally showing it affects more people. And they're like, but I wanted to show it affects me. And you're like, okay, we can do that too. It's not like limited here. It's affecting everyone. It's a worldwide pandemic. Everyone gets their shot. That's the thing that pisses me off when the right wingers are like, oh, you make it sound like everyone has long COVID, and I'm like,
well,
yeah. I don't make it sound that way.
It's like, did you have COVID?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I think we have the biggest group of Novids. Like, as for all the talk, like, I think we have like 8 main people on our team, and I'm pretty sure only me and Heather have actually had COVID.
Yeah, and I've had it twice.
Yeah, she has a teenager, so there you go. And I had it at the very start, but I think everyone else here has managed to be a Novid this whole time. So when we're speaking about like avoiding COVID and using things that work, I feel like we have a little bit of ground to stand on here. I feel like there's a little bit of like, hey, this stuff works. Masks work, the extra steps work. I like how people are like, well, I'm not telling you I got it now. That's for sure. That's for sure. But with validation we had, and one of the things we talk about with long COVID a lot is combination antivirals. So like Paxlovid alone failed, but like Paxlovid when used with remdesivir has worked before. But there's another antiviral called Zocova or Encitravir, which is a generic name for it. And this one is out of Japan, right? The other one's China. The Asvidine is China. This one's Japan. And they had a patient who was in B-cell therapy for cancer. B-cells wiped out, couldn't clear COVID, and after 3 months of trying everything, they used a combination of Zocova and remdesivir to get him cleared and symptom-free. And he probably is cleared of the virus because he had no immune system to fight it. That's one of the things people always ask. I was like, well, do you know they're cleared of the virus? It's like, well, they had no immune system, so if there was any virus left, it would be still infected. You know, he'd be actively infected. So the combination of Zocova or Encitravir and remdesivir. And I talk about remdesivir. It has kind of a bad name, and people were trying to say it killed people a while ago. I don't know if that's true.
It did not.
It did not. Yeah, I didn't think so. But it is has good brain tissue. It gets past the BBB, blood-brain barrier. So monoclonal antibodies are large molecules, and they don't really antibodies. You don't really want antibodies in your brain if you can avoid it, because they can be cytotoxic in certain conditions. And so and that's something your body decided by keeping it out in the first place. It's kind of also why COVID is such a big problem and why nasal sprays and upper respiratory tract is so important, because when COVID enters your nose, which is the primary entry point now, because it's the weakest point that we have, it's in your brain where there's like very few B cells and very few antibodies and very few of all kinds of things you need to fight COVID. So like you really want to stop it between your nose and your brain, because once it's in your brain, it has to work its way out of there to get into for your immune system to even fight it really that well. It's wild how like I feel like the things that make COVID the most dangerous are the things that are not said by all these COVID groups. You know, these COVID, long COVID, even like WHN. Like I feel like the things that make it the scariest are they just completely leave on the cutting room floor. I don't understand it. It's like they talk about things in a tone like it's the biggest deal ever, and then leave out the parts that make it actually read that way to the public. You know?
That it's in our brains.
Yeah. Man, remember that whole time
That's
when they
the
were
thing
like...
that always scared me the most.
Yeah. What's that again?
That's the thing that always scared me the most.
Yeah, the brain. The old brain ski. I hear you use that at least like 2-3 times a day.
Yeah, the losing the taste and smell thing from the beginning was like...
Was a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
Yeah, dead being...
And you know what's an early symptom of both Parkinson's and Alzheimer's?
Oh,
loss of smell.
Yeah, loss of smell.
Ah.
Yeah. Your central nervous system is getting disrupted. And that's where I think a lot of this is like, I feel like we say COVID is a disease of the blood, which is true, but we're learning more and more about how it really causes a shit show in the central nervous system. Like, I'm learning more about the central nervous system, trying to explain how these drugs work and what's probably happening than I ever thought I would. Like, I thought I would never. The central nervous system is like so overly complicated for good reason. And now we're learning about how all these different things and how that's a new thing every show with a new whatever. But I do feel like we have like a theory that's coming together that kind of like works between all of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, so you can't have, so when you have things like the central nervous system, this is what makes it so hard, is you can't have working theories that are independent of each other. They have to work in each system independently. So, so seeing these as like large feedback loops with a lot of different processes and how those processes can get screwed up, and then all these different ways to like short circuit or push something through, or, you know, anything you can do to try to just like make it work, and then hopefully the system like gets back to working normally again. And that's not a lot of hope for people who are having like extreme mitochondrial dysfunction, but I do feel like we're also narrowing down that, like when I said long COVID was mostly mitochondrial dysfunction, it was like a combination of people being like, people have said that before, and no, you're wrong, it's something else. Like, it was such a split in the middle. It really seems like the further we get into this, the more it is mitochondrial, you know. But again, since it's handled by your central nervous system, you're not dealing with like food will fix it. You know what I mean? It takes usually something else, because what you're really doing, so you're basically mitigating the effects of cytokines, which I learned something interesting, Terry, that rheumatoid arthritis drugs, all they do is mitigate cytokines, specific ones.
Really?
Yeah, so like all that is causing rheumatoid arthritis is extra cytokines. I mean, I don't want to.
Inflammation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm simplifying, not minimizing, but basically we have these drugs that people are using. What was it? The Anakin. It sounded like Anakin. It was a rheumatoid arthritis drug.
I know people that take chemo drugs for rheumatoid arthritis, like methotrexate.
Well, I guess it just depends on how it shows up in your charts, right? Like, but
yeah.
But some of these ones were just all they do is mitigate cytokines, and so the more you read about cytokines, and anytime you're like a new study comes out talking about sigma 1 or AMPA or one of these things, just Google do cytokines affect whatever it is and how, and you'll get an AI feed on Google, which is not really AI, it's just Google talking to you, like it always has. And it kind of explains how the data on cytokines affecting whatever the thing is. And you can go from there, like understanding the process on how does that feedback loop function. And then so the cytokines disrupt that feedback loop somehow. And so you have to go from each part of the feedback loop and try and restart it with each one has a different drug that modulates it effectively. And that's why it's so hit or miss, because you can have the same symptoms, but they're caused by different things. Even though they're right next to each other, they take different drugs to make it work. Like some people can use glutamate and the AMPA will lift and the ion channel will happen and the brain fog will go away. And some people, they have persistence, and so the persistence is consistently releasing cytokines, which is what I'm thinking about. It's like when I was going back to the rheumatoid arthritis, which I know very little about. So I had a friend with it a long time ago, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm an expert. I am not. But I wonder how much of it you think about persistence and how autoimmunity, right? We talk about autoimmunity, but autoimmunity is also the same as persistence, because persistently infected cells release cytokines as if it were an autoimmunity. But then you also have autoimmune stuff in addition to that that's like cytotoxic. It's not just being properly replaced. But the point is that I wonder how much of this is driven by types of persistence of different viruses and pathogens, because you're having this persistence, it's infecting cells, it's releasing cytokines, and you have this pain all the time. And so I wonder how much of that is, there's some overlap there I find very interesting. Especially now that I know how little we know about infected cells, like persistently infected cells. Like we barely like understand this stuff gets in our brain. So when doctors or whoever say, oh, it doesn't do that. Are you sure, or do we just not have a tool to measure it?
That's probably the latter.
Probably the latter. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I that's why I said it. I 100% believe that. I think that, like, for years and years and years, they told us viruses can't get in our brain. And I'm like, but they go in through our nose. Well, yeah, but there's other blood systems. It doesn't go through your brain. Okay, but what's stopping it? Nothing. Nothing. So it's just basically too horrible to comprehend, so you're just going to tell me not to worry about it. Gotcha. No, I think we actually covered everything. We got Iran is still an absolute disaster, and they're punking Trump out. Though I think things could escalate even more dangerously very quickly.
Yeah,
really, really badly. And I feel like flipping the country over is really important because these people need to be prosecuted for what they're doing.
absolutely.
Like, I feel like this is a big step over Bush. If he had gone to Congress, I would still not support the war. But if he'd gone to Congress and sold his war to Congress like they did in Iraq, then, like, there's nothing you can do. You can't go after the Bush people. What they did is a crime, but they did it legally. America's a criminal country. That's how it works. I hate it. I wish it didn't, but it does. Mm-hmm. But what Trump and this guy's doing, they are clearly breaking American law. So, like, I don't feel like it should be, like, controversial to say that they should be held accountable.
They're breaking international law too. It's a war of aggression.
Yeah, but we don't have any good international, like, war crime set. Well, we are signed on to the things that Israel isn't, actually. We are signed on to the things that Israel isn't. Israel gets away with, well, we didn't sign that document, but we did, didn't we? I think we did. All those conventions.
Yeah, we did.
So, like, we are. Yeah. What were you saying, though, Tara?
I don't remember.
Just as well. So, BA3.2 is not new. It is not really that special. The noise over it is, like, we need to be prepared to transfer this over to whatever we're going to do. Yeah, we're watching that variant still. It's what we'll tell people. But, like, we need them to be prepared. Like, I really don't want to hear when... Because there's, like, a 10% chance. I mean, it'll be a part of the discussion, but there's just not enough of it to warrant vaccine focus. So, because we are going to be involved with that. Like, the WHO just put out their guidelines, or the initial setup to start choosing the variants in May. And I think by May, BA.3.2 should be either it's dominant or it's done. Either I'm wrong or I'm right. Either way, by the end, it should be clear. But if we end up going with, like, XFG 0.1 or something like that, I don't want to hear people say, oh, we didn't choose the wrong... Because I had so many people saying, we choose the wrong variant again. And I'm like, no, we chose the right variant. Well, these guys on the internet told me it's the wrong variant. And you're like...
Well, they're wrong.
Why are you listening to guys on the internet? Well, you're on the internet. Okay, you got me there. Show up at the meeting. Watch the meetings. They're boring as hell. We show up. We talk about them. We interact with people. Hopefully I get a presentation slot again. But I just really don't want to hear people saying, oh, they chose the wrong variant. They didn't choose the new variant. Because it's so bad. Like, what these people are doing is so bad and dangerous for vaccine uptake. Like, vaccine uptake in America is already garbage. Like, it's legitimate. It's not even hot garbage. It's cold. Like, the raccoons have already pulled through it garbage. It is awful. And we really could use to pick it up. Because even we heard there was some good news that and I got to read it more before I really talk about it. We talk a lot about memory responses on this call. But the LP81 vaccine's updated memory responses better than previous ones had. It's kind of shocking. I'm going to bet it's because they're so close to each other. That maybe like, the fold range for mRNA is a lot lower than Novavax. So when we're doing variant stuff, Novavax can, like, take the old variant and it's fine. People just get another shot. It'll be fine. But with mRNA, you need to really guess as close as you can. And you want to try to guess, like, one step in front of that if you can, somehow, which is, I mean, magic. It's total guessing. We get some ideas. People that share those mutational charts, we don't know. It's totally inconsistent. If it were consistent, we would be talking about it in some consistent format. But I feel like the difference between KP2, and I gotta look at the data again, and LP81 is much closer than the distance between previous vaccines. Like, BA5 and XBB 1.5 were really far apart. And then JN1 and XBB were really far apart too. These were huge mutational jumps. They were really far apart. But KP2 and LP81 are, like, in the same ballpark. And I wonder if this is finally showing us... I'm just having this thought right now, and Biff, tell me what you think. I think this might be demonstrating to us how close the variants can be to update memory responses. Because you need 2 exposures to update your memory response. And KP2 and LP81 are just still JN1 variants. And so I'm wondering if by giving people 2 JN1 variants to go, they got a better response out of the LP81. But I got to check to see that study to see if they actually did chains of vaccines or if it's just a sera test. I got to double check it. I'd be really happy to hear that, though, because one of the things we're always pushing for is trying to get people to update the memory responses for people who get mRNA. Novavax does it with 1 shot, but mRNA does it in like 2. So, and getting 2 close together, it's risky. So you want to, it's the IgG4 response, in case you're wondering. So you don't necessarily want to do that, which is why we have them set up the way we do. And then, anyways, just thinking about it. Anyways, I think that's it for us. Anyone have anything they want to throw in, or another call with no interruptions? I call that a win.
That's good. Yeah, I would like to say some more about the Iran situation.
Have at it. The mic is yours, my friend.
Well, Trump is all over the map, even just today. Like we talked about last time we were on, about he gave that 10-day extension where he's not gonna commit war crimes for 10 days.
I thought we already won this war 18 times. Go ahead.
Yeah, he also said we've won several times. He again today, this morning, said that the discussions are going very well. Again, there's still no evidence that there's any discussions happening.
Yeah, Iran is laughing. They're like, we're not having any.
Right. And but then he says, if great progress isn't made and reached soon to open the Strait of Hormuz, that he's going to obliterate their electric generating plants, oil wells, Karg Island, and possibly all desalination plants. So he's basically threatening even more war crimes. But by the end of the day, right before we came on here, I saw that somebody in the administration talked to Wall Street Journal, and they said that he was open to them not opening the Strait of Hormuz. So he's just all over the map, and they're still bombing Iran like crazy. But to piggyback on something that you said before about, changing things, after this is over, and hopefully it's not so bad, even though Jim Cramer just said that oil prices have climaxed, so we should kind of all worry.
I literally saw gas prices going up as I was driving down the highway today.
Like you saw the number roll up?
I saw the numbers roll up, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, this is definitely going to get worse. But once this is over, it's not just the Democrats that need to sort of run on substantive policy and changing things for the better. We need to change things internationally. Like, we need to hold these people accountable, bring back international war crimes tribunals, actually have accountability for people on the world stage, and actually change the world. So that's kind of, I feel like we need to look at this as like a new beginning once this is over, to bring some kind of sanity and not just operate in a lawless space of barbarism. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's certainly doesn't seem right. It's weird how we're seeing a side of America, or in Americans, it's very ugly, where they're like, the racism, it's just so powerful, and the propaganda. I mean, we've been feeding propaganda that against Iran like this since like the 80s, or this even earlier. So it's like people have been really inundated with this, the evil, bad people, whatever sort of thing.
Yeah. It happened all throughout the Cold War, and every war too. They, along the way, desensitize us to the so-called enemy.
Yeah, there's nothing good to say about it. There's nothing good to say about it. It's
No.
It's amazing. It's amazing how much he's weakened America. Like, and we
Oh,
were
yeah.
like a superpower in charge of the world in so many ways, and we just like he totally fucking blew it. Like, I've never like. Not only is he seemed like an idiot, but he also made Americans look like idiots because people believed him. So people think like the voters are representative of America, and they are at least a third of it, or at least let's say probably closer to a quarter. And it's going to be a long time. I do, by the way, all for bringing back the war tribunals. Just in general, like there's just so much awful shit. But the thing is also weaponry's gotten to a point where like people can just hold out. It's very hard to like get substantive change if you can't reach the people who are making these horrible decisions. And in that case, then wartime, I mean, as intended violently. You can't reach these people. They instantly, like Trump's building his bunker. So
just having the war mentality.
Yeah, I mean it's very profitable though. For all the people who are kissing Trump's ass, they're making a ton of money on all this stuff. So it's sort of like one of these. I can see why it drives the way it does, and beating that is really hard because. Doing the right thing, like building libraries, isn't super profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And Americans are consumed with making money. So those two things are just sort of antithetical to each other.
Yeah. And it's not like Iran, it's not like I kind of I thought about this over since our last call. Like, I'm not like for Iran. There's not really like a good guy, bad guy situation here. Like, it's just that I see.
We're responsible for our bad guy. That's the whole thing. It's the same thing as like why people were like, I didn't want to vote for Kamala because she was going to endorse the genocide. And like, well, the genocide still happened. Like, yeah, but I didn't vote for it. And it's sort of like people keeping their conscience clear. So it's one of those like.
Right.
I don't know.
Or people say like, why are you so mad at Israel doing a genocide and not this other country that did this thing? And it's like, well, we actually fund Israel doing that stuff.
Yeah, and it usually turns out that Israel's behind the other genocide too. So just always like, I think the big one you can say is Israel is the number one exporter of diamonds, I believe, in the world, but they don't have any diamond mines.
And
you're like,
so they have their hands in African.
So where do they get the diamonds? Yeah, it kind of goes. There's also a big thing in like, kind of like you go a lot of places where it's been an issue in the last like 100 years, where there's like one group really dominating a region. You find out that it's all kind of top down from that. It sounds like anti-Semitic bullshit, but I was kind of shocked by it. By the way, just want to make sure everyone understands. You listen to this, and we are wrapping up the call. Jesse and Terry, both Jewish, so. We're not on some sort of, it's just legitimate concerns. I do want to wrap it up there, though. I feel like we've had, a rough go at it with all this long COVID stuff, but we finally are getting some data points that I feel like are sending us the right direction. I feel like there's a lot of valuable information from the successes to the failures. Just no more Paxlovid studies, guys. If you want to use it as like a combination antiviral, maybe, but I would rather use Zocova. It's technically got a 3CL-like inhibitor, so it's not an actual same protease inhibitor. It's similar. It's like it affects a directly adjacent protease inhibitor a protease that is actually a little better. So it has a better mechanism than Paxlovid has. So if we want to see anything, I think maybe, and some people on staff were saying that we should be pushing Zocova with an X-O-C-Z. No, I didn't say that right at all. X-O-C-O-V-A. Zocova. I think I'm saying that right. Donna's in charge. If I'm saying it wrong, blame her. But
they need a jingle.
Xlova. Sorry. And then that's normally known as Encitravir, which is a name we've heard a lot bounced around. And the fluvoxamine that worked. They were successful. So that's good news. And then more than ever, it's a good time to figure out how to protect yourself from COVID if you aren't, because I think the COVID killing T cells without infecting them is a bigger deal than BA.3.2. Like, I think that's a way bigger deal. So on that note, we're out of here. We'll be back. We're here on Mondays and Thursdays, live doing the call. You're welcome to join us on Discord or leave any questions or any information if you want to know more. just feel free to leave in the comments. Thank you, everyone.